G'day, everyone, particularly all you cool young kids out there. What a week it has been. What a day it has been. And it's not the end of the week. It's not a Monday afternoon or an evening, wherever you are in the world, without a whiskey round table chat to have a little bit of fun. Now, it has been a very big week, as it always is in the world of whiskey. It's even been a bigger day. And I know that we are all watching as I get other noises into my ear, which I definitely don't need. But it has been a big day, and I know we're all very anxious for results. And we do appreciate you watching this while other results are going on. And I promise you, as results come through, we will announce them live tonight, which is going to be great. I am talking, of course, about State of Origin kicking off at 8:10, which I'm joking. I'm joking, obviously, because we will be wrapped up by 8:10 so we can all go watch State of Origin like real human beings. G'day to everyone tuning in. It's great to be live on Facebook, live on the YouTube, because we are cool, we are young, and we are hip, and we know how to do this. So we've never stuffed this up. This has never gone wrong. So it's very great to be here and be doing this.
Now, the last 3 weeks. Don't worry about those. Come on.
Don't worry about the last 3 weeks. Don't know what you're talking about. Now, it is, as I say, it's been a very big week, and there's a little bit to wrap up before we get started. A round of applause to Alex Dahlenburg, who did win the official Halloween dress-ups for Whisky Roundtable, coming as a filter, because once again, we are the cool kids. We are down with Instagram and all of that. What she wins is a lifetime supply of Fireball shots, which is kindly donated by Andy Milne of South Trade down at the bottom left-hand corner there. Thank you, Milne, for that. Yeah. And, like you can just see in his eyes how long of a week it's been for Milne, and he's already thinking about where we're going next after this. It's the only reason he wears glasses, so he can look respectable in these tastings. And I want to do a big shout out to Bailey, of course, who cancelled 3 concurrent meetings to be with us here tonight and make way for Whisky Roundtable. Decision he will probably regret in the very, very near future. But he's here anyway with a very average haircut, which is an improvement for him. So we're very happy to see him not offending people with his haircut. Me, it's been a big week of soul searching. The biggest question I've had to come to terms is I went to a shopping centre and I didn't realise how much they've changed. When I was a kid, shopping centres used to be fun. Now they're all just fashion and wearables. There's nothing apart from shoe shops and perfume shops and clothes shops. Where are the whiskey shops in shopping centres? That is the big question we need to ask. Where the fuck are they? Because
have we lost Niko again, by the way?
Shopping centres are the most boring thing. He'll be back. He'll be back in a second because it is his time. Someone who can tell us all about why the internet is and what it looks like and where it's going. Niko Devlin, the founder of AWAS, Australian Whisky Appreciation Society, which we are live in tonight, to tell us what the internet is, why it's important, and is it going to hang around and be a thing here for the future? So there's lots to get through, all of this, and obviously much, much less in the next hour. Niko's gone. He's gone already. He's heard this intro, and he has fled for the hills. He'll be back. While we wait for him to come back, we are going to ask that big question, the biggest question of all. And so we're going to take out that Aussie Mail CD-ROM, chuck it in the computer, and get 30 days of free dial-up internet by asking everyone what is in your glass tonight, funky dudes and dudettes. M&Ms. I hope they're liquid M&Ms. I hope they're melted.
That's the first time I've ever seen you eat on stream, Alex.
No, I'm not even eating on stream. I finished them before.
Yeah.
Scotty, when you were talking about results, I thought you were talking about like your pending STD test or something like that.
No, it's always positive.
It's always
no, there's like I do those tests, but it's mainly just to pretend to the doctors that I'm sexually active. Okay, there's something you have to do to get one of these. That's the level of tonight. 9 minutes in, there you go. That's where we're at.
Just hoping you'll get papped on the way in. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Recognise me. Look at me.
While we go in the circuit, and welcome back, Niko. I said some very nice things about you there. I promise you that I did. But I used up all completely. Yeah, I used up all my nice things I said in that intro. Nice all bad things. Moving on, because it is State of Origin night. I've picked a New South Wales beer that is lightly blue. I've got the Akasha Hopsmith IPA, and I have an unlabeled New South Wales whiskey as well to drink to success, prior to success. What else are we drinking, ladies and gentlemen?
Anyone.
I'm being really cool and drinking a wonderful blend of green tea and peppermint tea.
Is that for your hangover?
The caffeine. Yep, exactly. It's the perfect kick of caffeine and energy. There's a bottle of whiskey in the corner sitting there, and I'm
Did you have a big Melbourne Cup, mate? What's going on?
Just had a big Tuesday.
It's always the ponds that go hardest in Melbourne Cup. It's always the way.
Yeah.
It's almost like they didn't grow up with it.
Nico, what are you drinking? Are you frozen again? No, you're there.
No,
All right, I've got a couple of dreams lined up here. I've got the AWAS Overeem cask there that I'm lining up. I've got also got a little sample of something that's coming out in a couple of weeks, maybe. So
Very cool.
Can't say too much about that just yet. But
Well, then why'd you bring it up?
Yeah, I look forward to that conversation then.
Interesting.
What are you drinking, Bailey?
Colonial pale
Just a
ale.
little dream of the Benriach as well there too.
Ah, fantastic.
So Nico's already pre-poured his dram, so the goal for the roundtable is to get him to mix them all together by the end of the night. That is target acquired.
Well, let's do it now, right? So
No.
Yeah, we are at that level. Look,
All right.
so
let me finish this one. We'll see how we go.
yeah. Look, tonight we're going to talk about something that I think we've flirted around and skirted around the edges in various roundtables in the past year, talking about different things. So we're going to dive deep, and it's a conversation that if we were doing this 10 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about at all. But the world is a very different place, and all of my hobbies now have online presences. I am in steam train groups. I'm in fountain pen groups. I'm in Wentworth for Leagues Club groups. I am in
VB
vintage
appreciation.
BP appreciation.
VB.
You
No,
got to
I mean,
give me a yell when you're going to win leagues, Woody.
Yeah, I haven't been in a little while, but yeah, it's definitely the center of the universe. Magpie Bar at the bottom there. I am in groups
About
that
20 minutes away from me. So.
I used to be walking distance. I'm in groups that respect the heritage of lost Westmead speedways, but I'm also in groups that talk about whiskey, and it's a very unique proposition to the way that whiskey's been appreciated for 300 years, as to all of our hobbies and passions are now appreciated, and we communicate about them in a very different way. Probably the best known and biggest Australian-leaning whiskey-based Facebook group is AWAS, and was founded by Niko here, who we're going to talk. So I guess to kick us off and get that Aussie Mail dial-up, really running tonight, is what prompted it, Niko? Is if he's still there, and if not, someone can just stand in for him and make it up. How's that sound?
There he is. No.
Niko, you there, mate? Okay, so let's talk about Fountain Pens Australia Facebook group. That's pretty good. They did give me a little bit of help last week, but no,
Yeah,
Niko,
I'm here. I can
Okay.
see and hear you guys. Am I dropping out?
yeah, sweet, mate. Do you want to talk like when
Maybe I'm not
AWAS,
moving enough.
yeah, when AWAS sort of started, and what was the inspiration behind, when Facebook groups were a little bit more of a sideline auxiliary thing. What prompted you to start something with a whiskey focus?
Yeah, you dropped out a little bit there. Can you guys hear me at all? Am
I got you, mate.
coming through?
AWAS, when did you start it and why?
Yep. All right, cool. Yeah, so I started just over 6 years ago now, so 2014, mid to late 2014. It was actually just after I had my second daughter, but I joined a bunch of different, whiskey groups. Basically just didn't want to sit at home alone and think about whiskey anymore. I wanted to drink, share my thoughts and talk to, someone other than inside of my glass about it. And, I joined a bunch, but nothing was really doing anything for me. And I used to run a pretty big NBA group, and I posted a dram in there, and a whole bunch of people jumped in and started talking about whiskey. And I went, well, that looks like my Facebook group that I'm going to start. So created AWAS off that, and very quickly it started to grow and grow and grow and grow, and now we're just shy of 14,000 members, and
wow.
far and away the largest of its kind in Australia. So, and then about 12 months in of it's sort of taking over my life running it. I decided to maybe I'll start laying down some barrels and things and dipping my toe in the waters there of actually putting together some whiskies and things. So, and here we are today.
Niko, tell me, how many posts and comments and likes do you have generally on a day-to-day basis? I know you and I have had one of these conversations and I was astounded by it.
How are we going?
Nope. How many comments and posts do you have daily?
It's actually pretty crazy, to be honest. So look, our peak 28-day period was just shy of 70,000 interactions.
Wow.
So that was the max that we've had so far. So that's like likes, posts, comments, 70,000 in 28 days. Well, it was like 69 something thousand. So it's that amount of traffic. It just gets hard to manage and to keep an eye on at times. We have our mod team that, everyone has jobs and, lives and, other things going on, and they try and keep on top of various posts, and we have mechanisms to monitor the group like keywords and things like that. So, that certain posts pop up that if certain words come in, so we can, go straight into that post. But at times it just gets quite hard to manage, especially when you get, say, like, something go viral within the group, where it just gets, a post might get 300, 400, 500, 600 comments, interactions and things going in it. It just gets really, really hard to keep up. And there's a massive workload there that, that everyone's really volunteering for. So, all the mod team, they get some whiskey perks here and there. I send them out some things, but other than that, other than being in it for the passion and love of whiskey, you have to monitor all these various personalities that are in the community, with very strong opinions about various things, and trying to walk that tightrope of enforcing rules but not being too overbearing, not trying to just boot a whole bunch of people out, but not keeping people in that shouldn't be there. And some of the messages and things that I've received over the years are funny. So but it's quite full on, I have to say, with that.
Okay.
I don't know how you manage to look after them all, as it were, because there's sort of entertaining moments as a spectator of, where the sort of a trend picks up or something's funny to, someone thinks it's a funny thing to post about X. Watches and whiskies is probably a prime example that sort of comes and goes, and everyone suddenly posts about it for 2-3 days and then disappears. But it's very entertaining to see people's opinion of what should be in this group and what the content should be, and as soon as they disagree, it's wonderful viewing from the outside, just to sort of watch and laugh as sort of two groups just collide.
Well, that's a good lead into like one of the questions we have for you today, which is, how do you think whiskey discussions and appreciation differs in the online space versus the physical space?
Sorry, I just lost you a bit there. So was it the difference between social media and face-to-face?
Online and face-to-face.
Well, people say a lot of things that they'll never say to your face online, right? And the abruptness and the attitude, I guess, or the tone of some of the interactions, a lot of people just would never talk like that to you if you're standing in front of them about something. And also, there seems to be, just in general with social media, when someone's online versus in real life, it's just, they're just, so maybe more stubborn, or just have stronger opinions, or less willing to compromise on things, or be less understanding. And I think that's just a social media thing in general, not specifically about whiskey groups, but the whiskey group is in social media, so that's the same field.
But then I also think it gives people that maybe wouldn't speak up in an open space a forum to be able to ask questions or share their opinions, whereas they wouldn't be comfortable doing it in person. And I think that's a great medium for whiskey drinkers, to be able to actually have that openness that they may not want to in person.
That's true.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's the flip side of the coin, is that I think, well, it allows more people to interact, which is why I started. I couldn't get out to tastings and things at the time. I was working night shift when I created AWAS, so I was always working when all these events were on, but I still wanted to be involved in the whiskey community and talk about whiskey and experience, share dreams with people, so to speak. And that doing it online was what inspired it, and doing it. But yeah, it's good and bad in everything, really. And look, I'll be honest, it's 99.9% good and 0.1% bad, but it's always the bad thing that gets the light shine on it, as opposed to all the million good interactions versus the one or two bad ones.
Yeah. I think it's a very good point, and it's something that you brought up right at the start, Niko, is that not everyone who is enjoys or is in love with whiskey has a group of friends that are equally in love or engaged. And even if you are, you may not have people that can get into town and all that sort of thing. And I guess the four of us in various different ways are very involved in bringing people together, in a regular year in a physical sense, whether it be at tastings or venues or whatever. But I think across all categories and all hobbies, that's really where the beauty of social media as a whole has lied. And I think as well, it trickles down from the top in terms of if whoever is the admin or the moderators, whatever they are in it for, that ethos trickles down, which is why I think we've seen, and not necessarily, exclusive to whiskey, but people who have tried to open groups as, corporate or marketing tools, have fall over quite quickly, because the intention isn't there just to share; it's there to capture and sell to, and then that world just doesn't come off. And how many brands have gone up and started a group run by XYZ distillery or whatever, run by XYZ distillery, and it's not natural and it doesn't take off. So I think that's a really important thing that trickles down from the top. But we have a question coming through from Bree from the Backwoods Distillery. Has interactions in the group increased a lot this year with people in lockdown? Did you see a spike?
Yes. Hello, Bree. I did, yes. One of our peak months was the peak of lockdown, when literally everyone was home, and that was another 60+ thousand interaction month we had. A month or two there where it was just ridiculous traffic again. There's peaks and valleys. It goes up and down. Some people, I guess, get tired of staring at their screens after a while and drop off. And I'll admit it's dropped a little bit recently. So as things open up, I guess people are just trying to get out a bit more, and they're tired of staring at their phone or screen. So, but still, we're even a quiet period is around 40,000 interactions a month. So that's quiet for us. Definitely, Bree. It did pick. It was massive at the start of the year when everyone was locked down.
Just on that, Niko, it's an interesting point you raise and Bree raises, and he's gone, and maybe he comes back. But I'll just throw it to you guys as well. I was going to ask Niko whether they actively go out to encourage membership and grow that. And is there value in that? Would you prefer to have a group of 10,000 people that are really engaged, or 20,000 people that are sort of semi-engaged? I know that some of you guys run groups.
I'm the first option on that too. I'd rather a group with 500 people that are super engaged with what you're doing, rather than 5,000 that have a moderate passing interest. And I'd say the same. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'd say the same for Alex, same for Andy. I mean, you don't want, like, if it's like it's good targeting. It's just good. It's good positioning at the least.
It's a bizarre one. I think from being turn it into a business and sort of having this idea of creating a business, and whenever people set up new social accounts for their businesses, it's all the case of, please like my page, and please like my Instagram page. that's purely so that
Right.
when they're then
I'm back.
presenting forward to other customers.
Matt's upside to go. Other than that, hey, sorry, I switched internet. It seemed to be dropping out all the time, so hopefully that's better.
All right.
I'll just
I've
throw
got
the
two
question we've
internet
sort of been.
coming. Yeah, sorry.
I'll just throw the question we've sort of been spitballing around here. Just on like the concept of numbers. The
Yes.
first part of it is: do you actively go out and try and attract membership to keep growing? And on that,
No.
do you see value in, you know, big numbers? You know, in the case of, for example, would you rather, you know, 10,000 people that were really engaged, or have 20,000 people that were sort of semi-engaged? And is that something you think about at all?
Yeah, it is. You know, look, you can have a small, super active group. You could have 100 people that are just non-stop posting, and they can create, you know, look, a comment's a comment. And if I say 20 comments to you and you say 20 back, that's 40 interactions, right? So, but in regards to growth and building, we basically, you know, the first sort of year or so, I, you know, shared the group around to let people know about it. Other than that, I hadn't really done much of anything up until very recently. And I mean, like in the past, say 3 or 4 weeks, you know, shared, you know, hey, you know, try and join up or things like that. But, you know, or shared like membership drive sort of thing. But we made the group private several years ago. So you only know about AWAS, you know, you have to search for AWAS to find it, or someone has to tell you about it. It's not going to pop up on your feed. The only thing we've sort of used for external communications, as I call it, is our page, our Facebook page, which has, you know, around somewhere like close to 4,000, you know, likes on it, which I really did nothing with. I just created it and, you know, we share the odd post there, but only recently I've started to actually use that page to, you know, I guess build, you know, knowledge, you know, let people know about AWAS essentially. It's been purely organic, to be honest, mate. I haven't done a lot of sharing or building, you know, in that regard. It's just sort of, it's grown itself. I haven't really needed to. We get, yeah, lots of members every day.
So you
and you've seen them come from a multitude of sources. You've seen them come from obviously a sort of friends of friends of friends of friends, sort of extended network, or do you see sort of a diversity, and of course, like across the world, but also just in Australia?
Yeah, it's look, about 2,000. Oh, it's just short, maybe somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 members are from outside of Australia. So
right.
I assume, yeah. So I assume they're people that are interested in Australian whiskey, which is sort of what my passion is building the Australian whiskey scene and brand and promoting that. Although we do, you know, dabble in the odd international bottling from a bottling standpoint, and we do let anything to do with whiskey in the group. Although initially there was sort of, you know, I just focused on Australian and I let other groups focus on, you know, international stuff, Scotch, other bottlings and stuff, you know, whiskies. But it just grew so much. It was like, I can't stop people talking about Scotch in there, you know, or bourbon. Like, what am I going to do? Hey, man, this is just about Australian whiskey. Stop talking about, yeah. But that was really the passion initially, was to focus on Australian whiskey. But I couldn't, you know, I couldn't really corral that conversation constantly back to Australian whiskey. And it has been something that's, you know, it just sort of exploded. And it's, you know,
I mean, if you're just going to talk about Australian whiskey, your focus point is going to be narrower than
exactly.
It's going to be less than 0.1 of 1% kind of thing, because it'll probably be reflective of the buying populace rather than of the group populace.
Exactly, yeah, and it's just you know, I found that it's sort of like, you know, as you're talking about like brands trying to start groups, it was kind of like I was just constantly backing Australian brands, regardless of any sort of criticism or anything like that. And some people did criticise me, you know, for trying to, you know, promote Australian whiskies non-stop. And I kind of took a step back from, you know, within the group, sort of spruiking Australian whiskey so much. You know, look, I've really, to be honest, my activity in the group, the first year or so, the group, I'd say about 80% was me posting stuff I'm drinking. So, and then I've sort of rolled it back since then. You know, I only posted occasionally.
But I mean, essentially, you've done that in a way. You've taken your group, and as you said, like these brands that come in and start Facebook groups or pages, please like my page kind of approach doesn't really work, as we've seen. You've taken that group and you've started to commoditize. So you come in around the other way, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of like, well, look, I personally, I actually looked into starting a distillery about 20 years ago. This was a long, long time ago. My AWAS co-founder, Brad, and I looked into it. It was, so the early 2000s, and just the task of trying to get licensed as a distiller in New South Wales. I did the research and I went, let's just keep buying whiskey instead. It's a lot easier. And then when I started AWAS, obviously there was networking with people, interacting with Australian distillers. That's when I thought, maybe I'll start laying down some barrels instead. Like, I don't have to start a distillery. I'll just get some barrels and go from there.
So I just learned something. I thought Australian Whisky Appreciation Society was location, like we're in Australia and we're appreciating whiskey.
Well,
I didn't realize it started as just appreciating whiskey, Australian whiskey.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's what I wanted it to be, was just a place for Australian whiskey, essentially. Yeah. But the growth, it just exploded, and I thought, I cannot control this conversation like this. You become overbearing, and I'm not that. I don't like authority personally, and I don't even like having it. But I do.
None of us do.
So, so that was the origin. Look, I started the group to talk about whiskey, and then as it evolved, I'm like, I want this to be about Australian whiskey, because I have a passion for this country. I'm very, I can trace my history in this country back 180 years. So.
Wonderful. And tell me, what's your favourite kind of post on AWAS?
Favourite kind of post? It's hard to say a favourite. But look, we've had some funny ones over the years.
Dan Woolley's chimed in with it. There it is. Your favourite type of post. There it is. Yeah, I'll just bring it up for you.
I just sent him a text message saying, no, stop.
Well, I can't see the chat or anything anymore, so you'll have to show me.
So Dan Woolley asked why Australian whiskey is so expensive.
Just ignore it.
No, Jesus, well, look, doing my head in, Dan, thanks.
What kind of post goes up? That's
probably my least favourite post. Have to constantly repeat the same information over and over again. Sorry, say that again, Alex.
What kind of post goes up that makes you proud of what you started?
Proud?
Yeah.
Well, just people shouting out our bottles or the things that we're doing, and saying they appreciate our work, or they like, the Overeem did, people were raving about that. I had some people say it was in their top 3 all time of Australian whiskies and things like that. So that's quite impressive. That fills me with joy. So yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I think it's an important point in terms of, Niko, where you see your role and that sort of thing. And what we were just talking about then, you can't talk about Australian whiskey by itself. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. Just like you can't talk about Scotch without mentioning bourbon, and you can't talk about bourbon without referencing Scotch and all that sort of thing. So I think that's a little bit folly. So, I mean, Niko, in terms of right now, because you're not actually as much for, like, in terms of the whole group, the sole content creator. You're almost like, the traffic divider of where we're going. Yeah. But pushing flows and that sort of thing. And so, like, how much do you think about what you want to control and where you want the conversation to go?
Well, really, we just try and keep, as long as people sort of stick to the rules, it's sort of okay, you know what I mean? As long as you're not being, abusive and things like that, or, getting overly political and things like that. That's sort of when we have to step in and guide the conversation, or maybe give someone a warning. But in regards to, like, say, guiding the traffic, the things that I'm doing for the group, I sort of keep to the announcement section. So you can just scroll straight past that if you want to. and then the rest is just conversation. It's just a community talking. So, you know, if you want to know what AWAS is doing, it's generally in the announcements, and then outside of that, it's just a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was starting my whiskey journey, and like looking for groups to follow, and I think someone told me to join your group, and I just remember having notifications on. So every single notification that came on. Please know this was 5 years ago, so I now have all notifications turned off in my life. But I remember like having all the notifications on when any of my friends posted, or just to be able to see what was going on. And I learned so much just from being in that community or watching that community from the start. And then when I started doing whiskey events, it was just such a great little forum to be in, going, hey, look what we're doing. And I think that's been, I think if that continues to be the great little community it is, and everyone fucking stays positive and nice, I think it's such a great tool to people that want to learn.
Well,
or talk.
I like to see it as a resource. You know, if you want to know something about whiskey, chances are it's been talked about in AWAS at some point. So you can either do a group search to find, you know, any number of conversations on whiskey if you're curious, or you just ask a question. You're probably going to get 30 or 40 people respond to you very quickly and give you the knowledge that you're seeking. And just, you know, I get plenty of what we call lurkers, you know, message me and just say, hey, I don't really post, but I love what you're doing. There are other messages. Yeah, that's another thing that really gives me a lot of joy. You know, just I'm like, we'll get in and post a whiskey, mate, or you know, whatever. So, but yeah, it's great. You know, you can see, you know, we have at any given time like 11,000 active members. So yeah, it's very busy, and great sport to learn about whiskey.
And I would say 11,000 active and fucking knowledgeable members.
Yes. Well,
because some of the stuff that I read, I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know that. And then I'd like fact check, and I'm like, what the fuck? That's awesome.
That's an interesting point, Alex, because that actually plays into that whole sort of realm of how the knowledge of whiskey drinkers generally keeps going up. And you've got to, like, if you're representing a brand, or if you're an ambassador or a manager of anything, of any brand, it's kind of like you constantly have to do your best to stay in front of the knowledge curve. And that's the self-improvement aspect of it, I guess. But I had a question for you, Niko, actually, on that point of knowledge level. As you see, it does grow with the group.
Yeah.
And you know, and the overall level of conversation generally keeps improving. Obviously, that's not something that can be really guided or policed or sort of or unnaturally grown, if you like. But
yeah, exactly.
But on that point, I mean, if we're to look at the broader landscape of things for a second, whiskey like discussion really started with forums. Started with like V-bulletins and forums that you know,
chat rooms,
chat rooms and you know, magazine forum online and things like that, which were great. And then of course it's migrated now to predominantly Facebook, a few other social networks, but predominantly Facebook. Where do you see that? Maybe what does that look like in your capacity? I know that's like absolute crystal ball kind of stuff, but like, where do you hope that discussion or sort of level of interactivity looks like in like 10 years from 5 or 10 years from now?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, when if you're comparing 10 years ago to now, and then projecting 10 years, you know, you wouldn't have picked it 10 years ago where we're at now, right? So you'd said like, you know, the majority of interactions in regards to community, you know, people enjoying whiskey is done online, you would have laughed at whoever was saying it 10 years ago. So look, 5-10 years, I hope it keeps growing. I think, like you said, I think the baseline level of knowledge of the whiskey drinker has risen over the past 10 years, just because in general we have access to more information in general, you know. So I'd like to see that keep going up and up. And what I'd also like to see is just people's understanding of what it takes to put a dram in a glass for someone and what goes all the way into that, and just being a little bit more understanding of the people behind it and what it takes, you know, all the work and efforts to get there, to get that dram into your glass. That would be where I'd like to see it go.
I like to hope that we're trying to achieve a bit of that with Roundtable, with the distillers that come on, and they're just a little bit.
We're trying to achieve something. Where was that in there?
Oh, sorry. So this is just to piss up on Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
It's a reason to put something in glass.
Well, that's why I showed up. I thought that's Wednesday piss up. All these questions I wasn't expecting.
Well,
But it is, I think that knowledge sharing and kind of, it's one thing I always say to any ambassador is you never know more than the room. And it's just, your goal is to know more than the room, but there is always going to be someone there that knows something that you don't know and that knows some fact that you don't. And it's incredible when you get that group.
There's always that mega whiskey nerd that's, knows everything. And you're like, all right, well, you teach me then. Like, I'm very humble in regards to my knowledge levels. I'm always trying to learn more. And, I know I don't know everything about whiskey. I certainly have been exposed to a lot of information over the years, but I'm always learning.
I think it's a great resource for that. It's the same, when it comes to sort of Malt Maniacs being the other one kind of in Europe, is that sort of the most intense, geekiest people of whiskey knowledge and history ever.
Hence the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great when you can just sort of go, okay, I don't know about this, so I need to find out this fact. And it's just these groups are an amazing source to go to and just go, cool, teach me and tell me.
Yeah, it's like a living Wikipedia. Do you know what I mean? You post your post, and instead of searching, you just get 20, 30 people give you the information, and away you go.
And he's Charlie McLean and his book. Eh?
I had a bit of a moment today regarding the old way of sourcing knowledge versus now. In packing
Did you go to a library?
No, in packing up my house and my garage today, I actually found all my old research books. So all the things I'd researched on food, and for each bar, you can almost see the way the groups are booked up. Grouped up. It was from every venue I've been in and how I used to research. And I know that that's a long time ago, but now all I need is my phone and I'm researching. So it's just insane. When we're talking about where it's going to be in 10 years, think what COVID did to the level of communication with Zoom. I joined a Friday night chat with Matt Bailey, and there was 40-something people in a Zoom chat.
Yeah, that was good.
And then we're all hanging out. I mean, we caused some shit that night, but
only that night.
Yeah, it was only
once.
I think it was the only one I was in. But yeah, it's just going to be insane. So I look forward to it.
Look, I don't see it slowing down. It certainly doesn't seem to be. And I think, as different technologies come, to the forefront, I think like Matt was asking, maybe in 5-10 years, it's some complete other thing. You got a chip in your skull and you're, sending thoughts about whiskey to people instead of typing it. I don't know, So, yeah, I think that far away, who knows? But the very near future, things look good. The whiskey is growing. More people are enjoying whiskey, which is what I want.
Well, Matt Bailey's already got a hole in his head, so he's a leading example with that one.
It's his neural link.
Yes,
the chip went in months ago.
It doesn't do anything though. Just a rock.
It doesn't turn on.
Activate.
Quick one. I think, and I'm probably in the same boat as a few other people. I was very, very lucky and privileged to have friends around me from when I was 18 that were very interested in whiskey. So I've always had people to talk to and catch up with and that sort of thing. And what we were talking about at the very start there, Niko, it sounds like, at that point in your life, you were craving for that bit of interaction, that bit of talking. You had a family and people, I don't have family and kids, so it's very easy for me to go out every night, It's and then you've built this community and now you're sort of moving towards having, this is, something that you can maybe earn a few, bucks through and whiskey, I'm talking about whiskey as a whole there, to eventually down the track, turn into, some sort of career. How do you, like what sort of thought process do you go with? You've got this community of people that's built very organically, often not being sold to or anything like that. There's no button that you can press and get all their details and then send them an email type thing. So how do you sort of achieve that with what you were planning to do, and then like what is the very soft ways that you need to approach that with?
Well, I've we've had many people spam the group with their products over the years, right? And it annoys me. It's especially if they don't ask, or if I've said no, you can't post that, and they do it anyway. So I'm very wary of. It's a delicate balance, right? Because I don't want to be pushing things on people. I still want that organic community to be there, but with the opportunities that I have to bottle these whiskies, I'd be remiss in not taking them up, right? And bottling, for these amazing whiskies for our members. So, it's hard. It's been a challenge to try and walk the tightrope and not be a salesman. I'm not really much of a salesman anyway. I just sort of talk about the whiskey and hope people like the sound of it and grab one. That's sort of where I've sort of taken up the page a little bit more and tried to use that, and maybe Instagram more to sort of let people know about the bottles that we're doing, the bottlings, and the email. And sign up to awas.com.au and you'll get, and then we can leave the group for the group, and and let people know through the other media channels about those things, and it can stay like that. So the community as a whole.
Interesting one there. For the way that group has evolved. I mean, I presume that you kind of have gained a kind of really strong knowledge of trends in Australia and what's hot right now, what's a trend that's here for the short term, what's here for the long term.
Yes.
I want to come back to that on Australian whiskey in a bit, but in terms of when you're now looking at selling products and bottling and picking casks and things, how much does that influence your decision, or is it more focused on what's available and the liquid that's in the glass?
For me,
obviously quality is always important.
Exactly. That's all I'm concerned about is quality. I've told some people I only bottle whiskies that make me feel like I'm chasing the precious, basically. So if I come across a cask that I kind of just want to drink the whole thing to myself, that's the one we go with, and that's what we've done with the Benriach and the Overeem and other bottlings we've got coming up. They are really just exceptional whiskies that I feel are amazing. And look, I won't say anything, but I've seen other people, bottle things that I've passed over, and they're still good. They're good whiskies, but I'm only in it for great whiskey. And in regards to trends, I'm not really concerned about trends or what people are drinking and, whether this thing's hot right now, or can I get like a Game of Thrones type label done up and I'll sell more, or something like that, because, all those trends there. I've in the 6 years, I've seen so many come and go, and ultimately the thing that has stayed is great whiskey.
The most important bit is to have a collector's card edition with all of the whiskies and just sell playing cards. Apparently that's pretty good money.
Playing cards.
I'm putting together our whiskey roundtable trading card set.
Is that going to go with our Australian naked distillers calendar?
I was going to say, the new calendar outsell that.
So I got a text from my mum basically asking me to come on. She wants to come on tour and do that with me. She's like, "Is this the thing? Can we really do this? Can I come with you?" I'm like, "Mum, you just want to see naked people."
Well, I think May's still open.
Well, is that an invitation?
As in the month of May. Post it for the month of May. We don't have a model for May yet, so.
Okay. Yeah.
Nico, you're in.
Yeah.
You're in.
I mean, great way to never sell a calendar is to have me naked.
Awesome. All right.
So on that, just go back onto the sort of where you've seen things change and evolve. You know, being that the group was originally about Australian whiskey, when you first started it, and your opinions and your thoughts of the industry in Australia, how has it evolved? In it's evolving. How I can't use my words today.
Hangovers do that to you, Andy.
Hangovers are a real bugger.
So hungover that you can't speak. Has it ever
I'll just
happened?
sip and let me know when you get it out.
Has it evolved and changed as you thought it would do, or is it something that's come across completely the way that the scene's evolved and grown? Is it kind of very different to what you thought it might happen, or is it kind of different to where you were looking for?
Yeah, look, I was with the Australian whiskey scene. You know, there's a lot of people that support Australian whiskey, but I was surprised at how many people were critical of Australian whiskey and sort of not the understanding of where the industry is in its infancy, essentially, and that what it takes to the support that something like that requires. It's really a craft industry in comparison to Scotch, or bourbon, and even Japanese whiskey in some other countries that are coming along the way. But we just don't have the volume and things to compete, on price points and things like that. And it just, there are certain distilleries that are making headway in that regard, which is great to see. And that is what I hoped we would see, that as people upscale their volume, they could bring down prices of bottles and it can be more accessible. And that is the positive that I've seen evolve over the years. And I just, would hope that understanding grows of, this, just because you see a bottle on a shelf doesn't mean there's a multi-million-dollar corporation behind it. And there might just be a husband and wife farmer team that just decide to turn their grain into spirit and see how it goes. And you just got to be, a little bit understanding of the, there's a face behind a lot of the Australian, there's a family usually behind a lot of these Australian bottlings, and it's just trying to have a go and do something in a new industry.
Have a go.
Have a go to get a go.
Have a go, get a go.
I have one of our old school questions for you. What's your desert island dram?
Desert island dram. Oh my God. Jeez.
One bottle with you. What is it?
Wow. I mean, I'll eliminate my own ones, obviously, because I'm very, but I'll tell you what, Matt, this.
Oh, good man. What is it? 33.
None of the
There's a song coming into my head.
Does
anyone remember the band Regurgitator? Regurgitator had this song that went, I sucked a lot of cock to get my right. I only want to be the best I can.
I've been hanging on to this last bit because I don't want to say goodbye to it. That and maybe, maybe a Heartwood, a Lark Revelation. That's another one that's up there. But yeah, I tell you what, that peat roasted pig on a desert island would go well. Hopefully, I just had some food to go along with it.
Yeah, awesome. Did you hear my song? Fun. Did you hear my song? I thought my song was very good, actually.
Can you sing it again? I want to hear it again.
Encore.
No, you got to go back and watch the replay. It's a one-time only thing. Or just Google Regurgitator greatest hits.
I know the song. I know Regurgitator, so I'm guessing what song it is. Yeah.
It's not Black Bugs. It wasn't Black Bugs.
To get where I am.
Yeah. All right, we're still not at 8 o'clock, guys. So
well, 5-2. So look,
all right.
I'm nearly into my second. I'm nearly finished the second room.
Yeah, I want to ask you a quick question. Like going back to I started the Oak Barrel about 6 years ago, which is when I moved to Chris. And I remember that first Christmas, here where I couldn't keep 3 or 4 Australian whiskies on the shelf. They didn't exist. It was, and then you post Sullivan's Win, and anything with the word Australian written on it just disappeared before it could hit the shelf. Now we've got like an influx of things appearing, and it's my job to keep up and know what's going on. And there's distilleries that have mature whiskey that I don't know about, and I don't know their stories and that sort of thing. What do you think has been the biggest trend in the way that conversation, not from people on the panel who get to lucky enough to work full time, but your average punter who might buy one bottle of whiskey every 2 or 3 months? What has been the biggest change in the conversation that you've seen? And obviously, what you were talking about, you can't talk about Australian whiskey in a vacuum. So from the very start, it had to be, an Australian-based whiskey group about all whiskey. What has been the biggest change of, the way people are speaking about Australian whiskey in the past 5 or 6 years that you've seen just as an observer?
Yeah, look, you get certain people that'll just follow a certain distillery, and that'll be their, they buy everything from that distillery. I mean, I do that as well. So it's good to see that kind of support build over the years, where, like you said, no one knew there was Australian whiskey. You know what I mean? Like, and there's still literally millions of people in Australia that probably aren't aware that we produce whiskey here. So just the knowledge, just the growth in knowledge that, we make whiskey here too. So, and seeing all the new members come in with an interest in Australian whiskey, that's, a trend, just that growth in awareness that we are producing whiskey in Australia is probably the biggest trend overall. We're going from, you go back even 15 years ago, finding, a good whiskey, be it Australian or not, was a lot harder. The whiskey category as a whole has grown so much over the past 10 to 15 years. And I think that's just the biggest trend overall. Like, people say maybe it's a bubble or something, but I mean, it doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. So that would be the trend, is just the growth in whiskey consumption and enjoyment, and then the awareness of Australian distilleries growing. That's probably the biggest trend in general.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have any comments on that? I think, like, for me, the biggest thing I'm seeing is people are asking more questions about Australian whiskey. 5-6 years ago, they would buy it because it said Australian whiskey. Now, because there was only one on the shelf. Now, when you've got 60-odd whiskies on the shelf, people are asking the questions, and they're being a little bit more, investigative about their choices. I mean, from whether Bailey, you have a lot of discussions about this. Alex, you pour a lot across the bar. Milne, you're doing a lot with Starward, obviously, as part of your portfolio. Like, what are you guys seeing as well?
I can stock a shitload more of it, and it moves.
Okay, so you're seeing more people take a punt.
Yeah, absolutely. And even called for at the tables, which is great. People going, hey, what have you got in Australian whiskey? That was a couple of, I think it was about 2 months ago. I literally had to go and grab 6 bottles, and I'm like, have a look at this. That's what I'm finding. Whereas previously, like at Grain Bar, it was all Japanese whiskey. Like, I had my little Australian shelf, and my little Australian shelf.
Well, what year was that?
5, nearly 6 years ago.
Yeah, so peak pre-bubble era.
Yeah, but so that was even with the start of Milne, like we were just starting to crack into what I found, cracking into Australian whiskey. We went and did the Lark Revolution release for the 25 years. And that was having a lot of Australian whiskey on a back bar. That was a huge investment as well. 25 bottles. So, and then now we have a huge Australian shelf, and it's great. And there is so much more interest in it.
Andy's on the move.
That's always
run, Forrest, run.
Bailey, obviously, with your role at Society, there has been no Australian whiskies bottled through the Society yet. Touch wood, I'm sure that'll change in the next 5-10 years. You've obviously spoken a lot about Australian whiskey. You've done a lot of tastings at Australian distilleries over the years. Like, what's the biggest thing for you in terms of the way people approach and talk about Australian whiskey in the past 5 years?
A lot of it is that the questions I get asked at society events, one of the two most common questions I think I'm asked these days at any society event is, how do I get your job, and are you bottling any Australian whiskey? And so, I mean, the second one's easy to answer. I mean, we're working on it, but it's got to be bloody good. So it's, you know, and there's all sorts of hurdles there, which we've been climbing. But yeah, I mean, I think the perception we've seen change over time. I mean, actually, Scotty, if I'm to really drill down on that for a second, like in 2015, I think the question I was asked the most was, "Have you tried Sullivan's Cove?" Like that was, the question always in 2015. But like now in 2019, 2020, kind of almost 2021 now, like the question that, as you said, the range of questions and the range of knowledge and thirst for knowledge on that has changed. And it's, yes, people still ask about Sullivan's Cove, but it's more sort of like, even like you've got to understand, like we are all the five of us here are very much at the forefront of a lot of that sort of what's going on there, and those questions and that discussion and those bottling. And so when I'm at a tasting now, you might get asked, "Oh, did you know they make whiskey on the mainland of Australia as well?" Like, yeah, very cool, very cool. And it's like, so like that even that is starting to sort of like proliferate now and starting to get out, which is fantastic to see. And it's always going to be sort of a betting in time. And I think the way that people approach it, I think is, and you get asked all the time about some of the bigger ones, like, have you heard of Starwood? Have you heard of Archie Rose? Have you heard of Hellier's Road? It's like, yeah, cool. It's like, and so yeah, I think that discussion over that kind of thing has changed, and I think for the better. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's just the awareness of Australian whiskey is grown exponentially. Just the fact that people are aware, and then they start to aware of certain brands and things. Like you said, it was Sullivan's. Sullivan's really put it on the map and in the forefront of people's minds when they won that award. But yeah, now it's, you see the Archie Rose getting out there, and Starwoods and all these things that are on shelves everywhere. And,
but I find the history of it fascinating as well, of the recent era. But the one thing I always like to also remind people is that we've been making whiskey in Australia since 1822. So there's which is
there was essentially just that lull in production there, and then
and not even. I mean, there was, but it wasn't massive. But there was a short lull, but it was I love that one of my favorite aspects about that is that Glenlivet is a distillery that their tagline for a long time, I don't think they use it anymore, but their tagline for a long time was the distillery that started it all. And they were founded in 1824. So it's like 2 years difference, anyway.
They were legally founded.
Yeah, legally founded. So the 2 years
let's not pretend that Glenlivet was the one that started it and everyone just went, "Oh yeah, this is a good idea. Let's start doing this."
Of course not. No, of course not. But they didn't even. They weren't even there by 100 years margin. No, of course not. But it's anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point. I mean, that element of it's like modern Australian whiskey history is just completely untapped, and it's not really written down. And I know there's a few people working on writing it down, and I hope they pull all that together. But it's a very different whiskey world post, Cradle Mountain, post Lark, that you want to potentially talk about. That it's very, very different, and I think any discussions that we have moving forward almost need to be framed like that, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to talk about Federal and Corio and those other places.
Well, there's sort of two incarnations I see of the Australian whiskey industry, right? There was the old industry and the new industry, really, where it was high volume, low quality. I haven't had a Corio, but I haven't heard many great things about it, to be honest. But yeah, like there was the reincarnation with like the Cradle Mountain and Bill Lark and the Tasmanian scene that really took the lead of the new industry and put it all back in the forefront. And look, it was a long, hard slog from their perspective, where it took almost 15, 20 years just to get any sort of recognition. So yeah, that's why I say it's sort of the old industry, new industry is the way I see it. But it's been a long industry, and most people, like we said, they're not even aware that there's an Australian whiskey, let alone the full history of it. And it would be great to see someone compile that history.
Yeah. Nico, it's been a fascinating chat. We could talk a lot longer based on any one of the topics we sort of spoke about tonight, but I think it's quite such an interesting conversation. It's not unique to whiskey. Pretty much conversations around every hobby and every passion around the world has got an online presence now, but it is quite unique in whiskey because it is a visceral drinking thing, and there are various rules around that.
Too.
Yeah,
very, people are very passionate about their whiskey and a lot of strong opinions.
So passionate.
yeah, particularly after 10 as well. I find I tend to get more.
Yeah, I think it's several in. You get very, very passionate about the dram you're having. So, yeah.
Don't know why. Final thoughts, anyone?
Thank you so much, Nico.
Thanks, Nico. I really wanted to have you on purely because I want people to see the numbers and the extent of what the social media platform is right now with knowledge and accessibility with whiskey and where the group started from, because we're all part of it. There's probably not many of us, not many people I know around whiskey that aren't part of it. And just those 70,000 people in 28 days, that's insane numbers. And I think people need to see that these groups are huge to manage, sometimes difficult, and sometimes everyone needs to pull their little heads in occasionally. But it is definitely something that is an amazing platform.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for having me on and talking about AWAS, and individually, each one of you, we've shared a dram, and, consider you all guys friends in whiskey. And I appreciate you sharing the love for AWAS on the Whiskey Roundtable, which is the best whiskey show in Australia.
Wow, I mean, I'd never even say
that. I'm back on
that.
Regurgitator, Scotty. I'm back on Regurgitator. What can I say?
Aren't we the only ones?
Well, look, it's a great way to be the best, right? Is to be the only one. So
no, there's plenty of other people doing it.
Look, if there's others out there, I'm not watching them. So.
I do just need to do a big shout out. It's my dad's birthday today. And I want to say happy birthday.
This one's for you.
All these Scorpios, he's just finished marking lambs today, and he starts harvest next week without me, unfortunately. He's doing it by himself. So, yeah, I just want to say a big happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday, Mr. Dahlenburg.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Dahlenburg Senior.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for coming in and watching, asking questions. Have been excellent. We will be back next week. Do we have a guest for next week? I don't know. We'll think of something. We had 1 week we were planned ahead, so we promised that's enough.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks? We're missing a week, are we?
Yeah.
You lost a week there, Scotty.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's been a whirlwind. You're okay.
Yeah, they're big weeks. I mean, I just wake up every Wednesday and be like, fuck, where did that week go?
Yeah,
and on that note, we will see you all next week. If you up next on this very channel, as you turn the computer off, turn the TV on, and watch State of Origin, obviously go the Mighty Blues. And we will see you all next week. Raise a dram, drink piss, be happy. We'll see you all very soon.
Sanjava.
Cheers. Go the Blues.
Thanks, guys.